Good evening. I am so honored to be back with you all this evening. I know I was just speaking to everyone earlier with Ira. It's been a wonderful, wonderful day. And this evening, we're going to be talking about a very serious topic. This is one that's a little rough, so I do want to give a little bit of a trigger warning. We're going to be discussing domestic violence. There might be some mention of sexual assault. And we're going to be specifically gearing this conversation towards what to do about it in the workplace when you realize the signs, or even if it's actually happening in the workplace. What do we do about it? So, this is your trigger warning. Please be aware that this is a sensitive topic. It's also a vital topic. And I am very honored to have someone with me that I respect very, very deeply, someone that is somewhat of a near and dear to me here locally in South Florida area. Let's welcome to the stream Miss Gwen.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So glad to be here.
I am so honored to have you with me this evening. So tell us first a little bit about you and what you do.
Okay. Well, most people know me in these parts as Miss Gwen, the CEO and founder of an organization by the name of We Leap, like Leap for Joy, Incorporated. It's a 501c3 nonprofit domestic violence awareness organization. And our whole mission is to break the cycle and break the silence of domestic violence. So we're kind of more boots on the ground with the raising the awareness component of it, the prevention and intervention, more so than the aftermath of it. We have another organization in our area that deals with the aftermath of it. So we just want to educate, raise awareness, and just let our community know that, hey, we don't want to stand for it. We don't want
That's right.
We're going to take a stand when it comes down to breaking the silence, and that's what we do.
I love it. I love that. I love the taking the stand aspect. So first I want to talk about, I know this may seem almost silly, but it can be actually a little bit confusing. What all is considered domestic violence? What types of actions are we trying to prevent, and are we going to be discussing today?
Okay, so domestic violence is actually a pattern of coercive behaviors. And a lot of people often think about domestic violence as only as a physical component of it, but it goes beyond the physical. It's the emotional component of it. It is the verbal component of it. It is the, you mentioned the sexual assault. It's just so many dynamics of domestic violence. And oftentimes people don't think of it outside of it being physical. But
Right.
Having that pattern of coercive behaviors, including threats, and different things of that nature, where the perpetrator is gaining power over the victim.
Right. Absolutely. And also financial. I want to throw that one out there too. That is a huge aspect of it.
Last month, that was definitely our topic last month. And a lot of people don't think about the financial component of it, but it's definitely out there and it's happening.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, I have sort of an almost amusing story about that. I recently had, or not very recently, but it's the not too distant past, I've had people that were confused by some things that my husband and I have set up to safeguard when I'm in a manic state with my bipolar, and they mistook that for something that might be dangerous. So they were very kind and approached me and made sure that I was safe, which I thought was great. And I said, and I would said, thank you so very much, but no, this is why this is in place. I said, you were not wrong to question. I understand why you did, but this is why, blah, blah, blah. And then everything was fine. But it's so understand that we're not saying that every single one of these things is always 100% of the time, this is what it is. But these are going to be some ideas of what to look out for. Yes. And why does it apply to the workplace? I get asked that all the time when I bring this up. And because number one, it can actually happen at work, and we're going to talk about that.
Yes,
number two, in leadership and HR, it is your job to take care of your people.
Yes.
And so if one of them is not safe, if one of them is affected by something so much that it's just decimating their productivity, things like that, then you need to deal with it and you need to help them out with it. So we're going to talk about how to do that in an HR friendly way. So first of all, Miss Gwen, and I'm having a little bit of an echo. If you have anything on that's maybe if you have me on two different screens or something, I don't know. Okay. Do you hear it, or is that just me?
Just you. I don't hear it.
Oh, cool. Then I just get to hear myself more. Okay. So I don't know what's going on, but so if you could start off by telling us a little bit about what you have seen that kind of leaks over into the workplace. What are some of the signs and symptoms of what spills over into the workplace.
Okay, well, I'm going to be talking from firsthand experience. I myself am a survivor of domestic violence, and I've experienced domestic violence at two critical stages in my life. My first exposure to domestic violence personally was as a teenager. The second one was as a young adult. I was in an abusive relationship with someone for 6 years. And it didn't start out physically. It started out with the power and the control and the, as I was stating earlier, just having that excessive desire to want to control another person. So when it became physical, I remember I was working at McDonald's. I was working 2 jobs. And I remember us getting into a very knockdown, drag down fight the night before. And I had a lovely shiner going to work that evening. So I did everything that I could to cover it so that I can be presentable to go to work. And I remember people noticing me, but no one ever said anything to me. So when you indicated that the person was concerned about you to the point where they knew how to ask, or they felt comfortable enough to ask, I don't know what the dynamics of that relationship is. However, sometimes people can tend to be very withdrawn when it comes to, they'll see something, but they won't necessarily say something. And just to put this out here, most corporate businesses that I've worked with currently do have the proper policies and the procedures in place for domestic violence, or what should be done. But are they often carried out? Are they often reviewed with leadership to the level to where they're actually walked out or implemented when it does arise? Is 2 totally different things. So I hope that kind of helps as I bring that to light. And no one ever said anything to me about it, but it was evident. And so when this happens in the workplace, it hurts. It really impacts the work ethic of the individuals that's exposed to domestic violence. It's kind of difficult to go to work and look up and take somebody's order when you have a shiner, or even if you're in the drive-through and you have to face these people, especially if you're in a forward-facing position, line of work. So you might have people calling out. That's going to be one of the things that people who have that volatile type of relationship that's going on at home, you think that they may be excessively calling out, but it could be some other things that are going on that require a conversation that may need to be had. And just because you have that conversation don't necessarily mean that they're going to tell you. So you have to be cognizant of signs and just making that person aware and comfortable enough that if there is something going on, that they can share it.
And also, and to your point, and they may not talk about it. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a sec, but things that a lot of times people will come down on their employees for. Production slipping is a very common one. Withdrawing socially from everyone at work. They stop going out in public. They stop wanting to even attend work events. They won't even attend work events. They won't go out with clients anymore. Right. And again, the absenteeism, the showing up late, the leaving early, having constant text messages with their spouse or partner is a big one that a lot of people miss. Is that it's that control. They need to constantly be checking in and knowing what's going on. Also, refusal to speak to someone of the opposite gender or same gender, depending on their sexuality. If all of a sudden they just quit talking to a whole section of their coworkers, that could be a thing. And then that kind of combined with things like not talking about their home life and things like that can be very sensitive. It's a rough thing to see. I had this experience as a leader. I watched one of my people just suddenly change, and it was never physical where we could see it.
Right.
But you just noticed just the whole demeanor shift and all this, and it was really rough to watch. And that leads us into, so you see something, then as the HR person, you do have to think, okay, so there are privacy laws. You don't want to just be nosy. You don't want to just assume. And the worst possible outcome to me is that you would chase the person off from being honest with you in the future when they're ready.
Right.
So you have to be so very careful. So how do you, first of all, do you start to, in your opinion, would you start to document before it ever happens, like kind of take notes about what's happening?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I highly recommend that there is a paper trail of what's taking place, especially if it's happening at the workplace. And we didn't talk about that because what we were talking about initially was it happening outside of the workplace and coming into the workplace. But so in either case, you definitely want to have a paper trail documenting of what's going on, because as HR, you can be liable if something was disclosed to you or you saw something and you never said anything or put any type of corrective actions in place.
Right. And even
in the workplace.
Yes, 100%. And even down to saving their emails and work texts if it's on a work phone, because that can be later subpoenaed for a case if that goes to trial. So you need to be saving all of that if you're HR or leadership, just with their spouse, not all their emails, period, but anything with the partner who is abusive. So
I wanted to talk about the confidentiality piece. And so the statement of confidentiality within the policies and procedures need to really be careful to include certain wording that would cover the company in the event of something like that. Because if, for example, if I came into your place with a shiner like that and your management, and whether you're male or female, and you saw that, how would you respond? I mean, would you know what the policy says?
I mean, me as a human, I'm going to ask, and very generically, my approach would just be, hey, you know, I noticed you have a black eye. Are you okay? Is there anything I can do to help?
And so
that's
whether
my
that
natural
person chose to tell you the truth or not, the whole point is there's notice been taken of it. That incident will be documented, because now the confidentiality is not breached because you actually just asked a question, and now you have something where you can document, and that person may not tell you the truth initially, but at least she saw that you noticed. And a lot of times people walk around with blinders on. They see and they don't see, which is where the terminology and the phraseology, if you see something, say something. But people have this whole, I'm just going to mind my business. But what if that was your daughter? What if that was your mother? What if that was your close friend? Would you want them to be ignored? Or would have wanted someone to at least offer that life raft, throw the ring out, whether they grab it or not?
Yes. And that's the thing, is you need to accept before you start to approach this, you do need to accept as a human that this other person may not receive your reach. And that's okay. It may be devastating because it can just be crushing, but this is just what you could do, and you can offer resources. I will tell you, as an HR professional, kind of the way that you want to handle it is that you bring them in, you can state what you have noticed. And factually, you know, I have noticed bruises, I have noticed that you're coming in late, I have noticed, you know, whatever it is that you've noticed. And then you say, is there anything that I can do to help?
Right.
And then you just kind of pause and let it go. And sometimes the conversation will go different directions from there, but that's kind of how you start it. You state the facts and then just ask if you can help. As an HR person and or leader, that's about all you can do legally and by policy, but and also practicality, because you really don't know. You really don't know. But I want to talk about too, so when you're having that conversation and it's documented, they don't take your help. And then you keep noticing the things. And let's say it's not physical. Let's say it's, you know, you're having to leave work early, you're coming in late, you're calling out, your performance is dropping. So then
what you would do is, again, you would continue the conversation, because we just stated that all abuse is not physical or visible. It could be other things going on. You continue the conversation because you still have to go through the process of doing what's required in these incidents. but you also want to remind this individual that, especially if you sense in your, in your gut, no one has told you, you want to remind them of the accommodations that are available and the assistance that is available for someone, as it pertains to leave, if your policy covers that, which goes back to policy and procedure. And if it doesn't, that is something you definitely might want to look at revamping or updating or whatever is required to make sure that this person will be okay or understand that they would not be in jeopardy of losing their employment if they chose to share that this is something that is happening, or bring in,
Yeah, whatever it is. And you can have employee assistance programs. Yes. You can have FMLA can actually tie into this, by the way. So you can make people aware of those benefits, any mental health benefits, any other resources that you may have. It's really a delicate issue, but it's something that you do have the right as an HR person and or leader to bring up.
Yes.
And again, you can't push it. You can't, and you can't go around assuming that that's what it is, verbally outside, but you do have the right to bring these things up. You also, I'm going to say this is unpleasant to think about, but it's true. You also have the right and somewhat the obligation to still move them through the disciplinary process if necessary.
That's what I mean. And so at that point, they have a choice to make whether they want to hold on to their livelihood or whether they want to hold on to their secret, which is not a secret, which
everybody knows, but
yes, because it's impacting their work performance, it's impacting their attendance, it's affecting the bottom line of the organization or the business. So it's just all about continuing to put the information before them, put the assistance before them, put the resources before them, and it's totally up to them if they want to receive it or accept it.
Right. And what I did in my circumstance,
the tone that you use when you're doing it, again, because remember, if they're already up under type of that tone, or if they're
they won't respond to it.
If they're already picking up sarcasm or something that may not even be, but because they're already traumatized in a sensitive area, they might perceive it as such from one thing to the next thing,
Yes.
So it's a very delicate.
It is. Area. And you have to your point, the tone is important. It needs to remain empathetic. It needs to remain, I am a source of resources and help. Yes. No aggression, not even towards the assailant. Not even verbally. No, don't do it. It does not help. Do not be surprised if the person tries to protect or defend that person.
Exactly.
And another one that a lot of people kind of miss is don't give suggestions as to what they ought to do. Like, oh, you need to leave him or her or whomever, no, don't do that. That's not helpful.
Don't do that. That's going to shut them all the way and completely and totally down.
Yes.
But what I would like to piggyback off or circle back around to is when it is how employers are responding to workers that are coming forth who are committing violence in the workplace, or people who are being sexually harassed in the workplace,
right?
Or in just different forms or different things that are taking place, the verbal abuse in the workplace.
Because partners work together, whether it's, a boyfriend, girlfriend, whether it's, a spouse, people work together. So let's talk about that.
At the same place in different departments, but they work in the same building. And sometimes we said what happens at home, don't stay at home. It's happening there. And sometimes it can be co-workers who have decided to start dating or something because they met in the workplace,
right?
And now they break up or they decide that this is not going to work and one person's not over it. I've seen that happen a lot.
It happens.
How does your policy deal with that? How, and I think not just going over these things at the beginning of a hiring stage and just, putting it in a folder and a file cabinet and that's it, especially when it comes to your leadership or your human team. It is something that should be periodically taken out, brushed off, reviewed, and even played out. How would you handle that?
I was going to say they need training. Leadership and HR need training on these difficult issues.
Yes. And not just training they actually need to role play it. They need to have an opportunity where if they were put in, and which is something that I do when I come in and have these HR trainings, where I put them in a situation to see how they will handle it. If it's something where it's being from the outside coming in, or if it's something that's brought to their attention within, and how close can they remain to staying according to policy.
Exactly. And it's tough. It is, because when you see that, let me tell you, I had an experience where I watched one of my coworkers get manhandled by her partner.
Mhm.
And I mean, in a real controlling, like, come here kind of way. And
Mhm.
ooh, my blood boiled.
Exactly.
And now, luckily, I was not in the leadership position, so I could be a little bit just more off the cuff kind of a situation. But thinking back on that, leadership, I want to know, I want you to critique this just right off the cuff. You critique this, because my response now, looking back at that moment, would be, as a leader / HR person, to go up and say to the person it was happening to, and say, excuse me, good evening. Look at the person who's doing it and say, I'm going to need you to please take your hands off of so and so. This is a violence-free workplace. We do not need to be touching one another. And then look at the person again whom it was happening to and say, do you feel safe? Do you need any help? And then handle it from there.
Reverse the roles.
Okay.
The reason why is because I would have reversed the roles. I wouldn't even addressed him.
Okay.
Addressed her first.
Okay.
And that would have automatically spoke to him without speaking to him. Then
okay.
I addressed her situation and found out if she needed the help. Number one, is brought attention to both of them that somebody sees you. Number two, it has given her the opportunity to speak before he even speaks about it.
Okay.
I do, or no, this is nothing, or whatever. And then you can document the person that you perceive to be the victim in the situation. You can document her comments first, but you still turn around and address now who you deem to be the perpetrator and let him know this is against our policy. But it's just like in CPR. You go and work on the victim first.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And it's one of those things. It's tough, right? It's a tough situation. And I've seen it in reverse. So I want to be real clear. It doesn't just happen to women. I have seen a man have things thrown at him violently in a workplace parking lot.
Yes.
Insanity.
And they know and understand that domestic violence does not discriminate, and neither do we here at this place of business. I have 3 sons and I have 3 daughters, and both of them got the same domestic violence awareness information. If you have someone that's hurting you or physically abusing you or emotionally abusing you, you have the right to say something. Sons, if you're in a situation, first of all, you're taught not to do that. But if you're in a situation where it's being done to you, same thing. You have rights that you need to do. And so, and most people, especially women, because I do this a lot. This is what I do. If I have a group of women in a room and I talk about men potentially being victims of domestic violence by a woman, a lot of them don't understand it or can't grasp it to the full-fledged point that we can if it's a man doing something.
Right.
Until I say, well, now it's your son. It's your son, your baby. He got somebody that's doing this stuff to him, and he hasn't said anything to you about it, but he chose today to disclose this information to you, that this is what's been going on, Mom, and I've really been trying to handle it and not say anything. All of a sudden, mama mode kick in.
Real quick. Yeah, now we get it. And as somebody who had an uncle who was blinded by an ex-wife in one eye, not a joke, and then had a cousin who was horribly abused by a former partner, a male cousin, let me tell you, it happens on a pretty regular basis.
It really does. And it happens outside of the workplace, and it happens inside of the workplace.
Yes.
And especially males who are dealing with it outside of the workplace. And when they come in, and if they have a female supervisor, or if they have a very authoritative toned supervisor or anything, you might see different responses from this individual at work versus what you would see at home, because now you might be lashing out or acting out or or just I don't want, it's really deep. It's really deep.
It is. And you have to, that's where I tell people psychology and emotional intelligence are so important for leadership in HR. So very important, because you start to realize things like something's not quite right. I had a guy once that worked for me, and he wasn't that he didn't like women or was a misogynist, but he would just all of a sudden just get real turnt with women, just real quick. That switch would just flip. And he was very guarded with women. And like he was protecting himself. And I later learned of a horrible situation that I won't go into right now, but it was really traumatic, and it explained a lot. But I did make effort while I was his leader. There was part of the situation I wish I'd have handled better, but the part I feel I did very well is I am naturally assertive. I am naturally kind of aggressive. And and I'm very opinionated, but I also made a lot of effort to let him know I'm on his side, to listen to him. I didn't really, quote, tone myself down, but I made sure that he understood that nothing was pointed at him, and that he could talk to me and that kind of thing. And it worked out from that standpoint. That aspect worked out very, very well.
That's the way to handle it. And being a life coach and a counselor, I work with the majority of my caseload, believe it or not, is male. Because I'm able to relate with them and talk to them, and not in a toned down tone, but just this is a judgment-free zone.
Yes.
It's a judgment-free, non-critical zone. Let's get to the bottom of things and talk about this.
And you know what's crazy to me? I did not know this until relatively recently. Almost 40% of domestic violence victims are male. And people just don't even talk about it like at all. And
it's not reported. And the thing about it is men handle things very differently than women do. They hold on to things, something that happened way back in 2019 and 2023, they still got it. So they internalize their process.
Yes.
It really speaks to their ego. It speaks to, their self-esteem and different things to be able to say, hey, I'm in a relationship where this woman is tearing me up, henpecking me, and all of the social pressure that comes with that for a man.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. And it's, for women, we are emotional beings. So being able to share and say what it is that what is happening to us when we get to the place where we're ready to it flows out a little bit more. But when a man gets to a place to where he's finally ready to open up and say something about it, it's coming out in chunks.
Yeah.
It's not gonna, like, when we finally get there, we'll open up.
Nice little flow.
Yes, not guys. Just drip. One session is gonna be one drip. For a couple of sessions.
And that's, you have to give patience, you have to give grace, you have to let them kind of come to you, whomever it is, let them come to you as it is, have those resources ready as they're ready to take them. You might have to give it to them a few times. That happens. But I do want to talk about too. So we talked a little bit about what happens when it's happening in the workplace and how you need to address it. Perceived victim first, then assailant, document, all that kind of fun stuff.
And that is just me. It can be you.
Oh, right. No. But I do like that, actually, though. I thought that was a great technique. I just want to put that out there.
To distance them out of the way. Trying to talk to him, I can tell him about the policy. But I'm trying to usher her and kind of guide her and move her as I'm talking to her.
Right. I also want to say, so first and foremost, if you see something like this, I see that. So that is assault, by the way, by legal definition, to come up and grab somebody like that. If you see what is classified as assault, you have the right to fire that person on the spot. Do it. Get them out. Take away that power, at least at the workplace. Get them out. And let me tell you, you do not want that in the workplace. It can erupt. I have seen situations where people get assaulted because they're just caught in the crossfire, just other random coworkers, violence happening at the workplace, that type of thing. You don't need to be having that. Get that person out. That is, I always say fire the jerk. That's firing the jerk. Do it. Second of all, if something happens and let's say a partner who does not work there comes up and is acting crazy at the workplace, you have every right to have them removed period.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what the spouse wants. It doesn't, nope. Mm-mm. Remove them. If somebody is acting crazy at your workplace, you have the right to remove them. Period. End of
Okay,
story.
so now I'm gonna do a scenario based off that what you just said
Okay.
that I would normally do in a workshop.
Oh boy.
You walk up on a scene and you see that what you just said, where the person, the individual, whether it's male or female, grabs the other person. Now I just threw something different in there. I just said male or female.
Right.
Because the door swings
both ways. Yep.
Before you would just up and fire that person, you came in on the scene and you saw that, but you didn't see what happened before that. So I wouldn't just jump to it unless you knew the whole story. Do some investigation. I would go through the policy, go through the steps, putting your investigation in place, bringing both of them in.
I always do an investigation. Yeah, I always do. But when it's assault, when you are physically harming another employee, that's a done deal for me. I really honestly don't care so much what happened unless it's something real severe. If it's assault, you're out.
Yeah, and it's case by case. It's definitely case by case, especially if there's a pattern or a history of it.
That too. Yeah, that too.
But because the lawsuits and everything are very real, and I want to tie that into back to your policy and your procedure. And if that is in your policy and procedure for it to be handled that way, then absolutely. If it's not, then look for a potential.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I go back to your policies and procedures. Does your policy and procedure say that? Because that same individual could take that same policy procedure, go to an attorney and say, hey, this is what happened to me. They didn't ask me anything. They just told me to take my stuff and get out. No one.
I will say this. If it's something like grabbing the arm, like what I saw, I would conduct an investigation first.
Yes.
If I walk up and you have hit a coworker, I do not care what your reason is. You are out.
Yeah, and that
don't care
as such in your policies and procedures. Because
it should.
It should be period, point blank. Because we're talking HR, and that's my master's as well. So when we're talking HR, even if you see that, definitely you can call 911. You can do everything that you need to do. But it should be done according to what's in your policy and your procedure. Because we're still talking about the human resources capacity of this, lawsuits, all of this other kind of stuff that can impact and affect your bottom line. And these people probably still be interacting while outside of work, and you done did all of this kind of stuff. But now next week, you got an attorney calling your place of business.
Yes.
So I'm still going to go back because we're talking about H&R.
Right.
Absolutely. But when it comes down to a place of business and their bottom line, making sure that you're covering, and if you want to handle something a certain way, it needs to be
100%
in your policy and procedure. It needs to be stated in hiring, and it needs to be reiterated in firing.
That. I always, whenever I create policies and procedures, I always put in there that if there is workplace violence, if there is physical assault, that you will be terminated on the spot immediately without question.
And that needs to be reiterated in firing in their lovely little letter that they'll be getting.
Yes. You were fired because you violated policy number, whatever the frick it is. Yeah.
That's exactly right. So it needs to be implemented in hiring and reiterated in firing.
Yes. And I also want to say, so when you've dealt with this, let's say however it is that you've had to deal with this whole situation, the people around the situation are going to need support too.
Absolutely.
The other coworkers who saw it will need support.
Yeah.
Be prepared to talk to them individually, also maybe as a group, depending on the circumstance. Offer them resources as well, because it's rough when you see something like that. It's very tough.
And that brings me to, in the green room when we were talking prior to coming on, how I mentioned a situation where There was an employee, don't quote me on it, I don't remember if it was Amazon, FedEx, but long and the short of it, these two people worked together. They were in a relationship together. The relationship broke up. One thing led to another. He continued to stalk her. They worked at the same place. She had expressed that she was no longer interested in a relationship. He continued. She got a restraining order, which was the right thing to do. So as we're preparing to wrap up, the thing is, a restraining order is definitely imperative when you're trying to distance yourself from someone that is displaying abusive behaviors and tendencies. By all means, get that. But also, you need to know how to safeguard yourself also. And he killed her. He came to the workplace and he shot her dead there. She engaged in conversation, was going backwards and forth with him, and he shot her dead right there. Once you see this person that you have taken a restraining order out on, then you have to take the matter into your own hands by following the restraining order. If you see him at work,
leave.
In the parking lot, why are you even allowing him to approach you? Because your emotions are twisted up and tired up and tangled. It's a complicated thing.
Yes.
It's a prickly pickle. But I'm telling you, if you really want your restraining order to be effective, you're going to have to follow it, dear hearts.
Yes. Yes. And I want to say on the HR/company side of that, if you have an employee who is taking out a restraining order on another employee, those two should no longer be at the same work location.
And oftentimes you won't even know the restraining order exists because they don't want you to know.
Well, no. And I'm just saying if you do, let's say you do know. Let's just say you do happen to know that.
No, that's in your policy.
Yes, again, back to the policy. It all comes back to policy. But it's true. But you do need, if you are aware of it, in the circumstance in which you are aware of it, they should not be in the same building. You are just setting yourself up for disaster. Just don't do it. It's tough on the HR side sometimes. It is. It's you get these complicated issues, and it is hurtful, and you have that personal response. Because my personal response, well, yes, the one that Catherine actually had in the arm grabbing situation, because she was not a leader or HR person at the time, was to walk up and say, "Excuse me, what the hell is wrong with you? You don't grab a woman's arm like that." That was human Catherine. Okay. But you can't respond that way in HR and leadership. And it is very difficult. So I want to give a lot of grace to the leaders out there who have had to deal with it, who will have to deal with it. It is tough. And also, leaders, take care of yourself. Absolutely. When you've had to cope with this, when you've had to help with a tragedy like this, please take care of yourself.
It's imperative.
Take care of your mental health. Take care of yours.
Work with it, and remember, I work with it from the prevention, the intervention, and the awareness side of it.
Right.
But because I get a lot of calls and a lot of people that use me as a resource, or what should I do, or how should I handle that? And that is one of the biggest things. It may not necessarily be them,
right,
that is in the situation, but it's a coworker.
Right.
Or a friend, or a relative, or a daughter, or a son, or being able to educate, have these workshops for your staff. Don't just onboard them once and then they throw the documents and the policies and the procedures in their file, and now they're working and they're living and they're going through life and they don't even remember where the paper at, much more of what it was said, and then
I know. That's like, pay attention. So what I'm going to say the closing, kind of just important information is, number one, make sure your policies and procedures are straight, that they are on point, and train your people on them, not just once, but continuously, especially when it comes to how to talk to people, how to create psychological safety, how to handle these types of disastrous type situations. Reach out to somebody like Gwen, who is amazing, and have her come talk to your people. And she could do it virtually, she could do it in person, depending on where you are. But definitely reach out to Gwen or another expert like her and get the help that you need to train your people, to get them up to par. If you need resources, if you're watching this and you're thinking, oh my God, this is me, they're talking about my life, reach out to Gwen. It doesn't matter if she's in the same state with you, in the same country with you. This lady will help you.
And
Let me tell you. Yes, and she will, and she travels, people. But
I'm coming your way.
I got you. I'm coming. So I just want to thank you so very much, Gwen, for joining me today. This is a tough topic, but it is a necessary topic. When millions of people are experiencing this every day, this is an important topic. So thank you so very much for joining us. As we say goodbye,
thank you for the invite.
Of course. As we say goodbye, please tell everyone how they can find you.
Hi, guys. Again, you can find me at successfulsolutionsllc.org, or you can also visit our nonprofit website, which is WeLeap, LEAP, the number 2.org. And of course, you can reach us at our office, 772-788-2113.
Thank you so very much, Gwen. Everybody have a wonderful evening, and I will see you all at Career Launch Live Friday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. Bye.